Okay, welcome back. In this video, what we're going to do is we're going to get into global illumination. So you're probably wondering what that is. Well, I'll just tell you right off the bat, global illumination is an awesome way of lighting up scenes, and I'm going to show you how it works right now. And when you see it, you're not going to want to light up your scenes any other way. So let's get started. First thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and open a new scene. So you can just go up to File and go to Open, or hit Control O on the keyboard, which is the shortcut. And the scene you want to look for is 02 Scene GI Start. So let's go ahead and open that one up. And we end up with a pretty simple scene. What we have is pretty much a mock-up of a room here. And if we do a quick render region, we should end up with something that looks pretty nasty like this. This doesn't look too good, obviously. So we're going to go ahead and take this scene. We're going to add global illumination, and you're going to see a huge difference between this and what we're going to come up with at the end of this pretty short video. We're not going to take too long to do this because it's actually pretty quick. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is get rid of all the default lighting in this little mini scene here. So let's go over here to Explore. Let's go to Lights, and you should see a default light up here in orange, just called Light. Every default brand new scene in XSI has one of these placed in there so that you can be able to see things right off the bat. So if that light's selected, I'm just going to hit delete on the keyboard to get rid of it, and you should end up with something like this. Now we can still see the silhouette here, and that's because we have our scene ambience on. So let's go over here, make sure you're in the render toolbar, the blue one, and go to ambience over here under modify. And your ambience by default is always going to be set to 0.2. So what we want to do is we want to just knock that down to pure black, which is 0. You should have values of 0 for the RG and beat color channels. Now with that done, if you do a render region, it should come out pitch black. Now this is perfect. Again, you're probably wondering, why is that perfect? Well, it's perfect because we start off with this scene with a clean slate. We wipe our work table clean, so to speak, and we can go ahead and manipulate this light however we want, which is exactly what we want. Now I can't see anything in my viewport, so that's going to be a problem. So to fix that, I'm going to go up here to my shaded options, and I'm going to switch to hidden line removal, and now I can see everything is clear as day. Of course, it's still going to render out pitch black because this is just a viewport shading option. It doesn't affect the final render at all. Okay, so what I have here is this sort of a hole in the ceiling for a skylight to come through, and I'm just going to pop a light right through that hole and have that light up the entire room, just like a room in real life would be lit up if it had a hole in the ceiling and it was daytime or there was any type of light coming in there from the outside. So the first thing we need to do is create a light. So let's go up here to primitive, and let's go down to light, let's go to spot to create a spotlight, close PPG, hit F for Foxtrot on the keyboard just to zoom in on this thing, and what you should see is 3 objects. We end up with this spotlight root object, which controls the spotlight and all elements of the spotlight. So you can see all 3 objects move whenever I move that object. Then we have the spotlight itself, and then we have this spotlight interest object. Now this interest is simply a constrained null, which is going to force the camera to look at it wherever it goes. I don't want that though, because I want to be in control of where this light is going to be facing, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that. I'm also going to take this spotlight and I'm going to cut its relationship with this spotlight root object, because I don't want that root object controlling my light either. So I'm going to select the spotlight, I'm going to go down here in the constrained submenu, and I'm going to hit cut. Now it looks like nothing happened, but now if I move this null object, this root object, you'll notice it has absolutely no effect on my spotlight whatsoever, which is perfect. So now I'm going to just delete it, and I should end up with just a spotlight. Now I don't like my rotational values over here under the transform panel. I see that my rotation, which is defined here by this R, is set to negative 19 point something something and 48 point some strange number. So I want to go ahead and reset that all to 0 and 0. I could quickly do that by going up here to the transform menu, just left clicking on it and going to reset rotation. Or I could have just typed in 0 and 0 for those channels and hit enter. So now my light's facing perfectly in that direction over there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit F12, and now you should go to a three viewport configuration here. and the hole in the ceiling is right over here, and you can see in the right view right here. So what I'm going to do is select that light, and I'm just going to place it right up there. And I can see in my camera view up here, it's not positioned correctly, so let me go ahead and just move it on over. And I'll go ahead and hit F12 and work in this view for now. What I need to do is make it point downward, because we can see its arrow is pointing that way, and we want it to point down into the hole. So in the x-axis, which is this red line right here, we're just going to go ahead and rotate this till it gets to about -90 degrees. Alternatively, you can go ahead and type in -90 over here and in the numerical input field. Alright, let me just move this a little bit up. It looks like it's right about in the middle of the opening right there, and it doesn't have to be perfect. We can just eyeball that. It makes no difference. Now I'm going to go inside the room here, and I'm going to do a render region from here. And what you see is something pretty typical, probably what you would expect. The light comes in through the hole, hits the floor, a little bit of the light manages to touch some of the wall, and everything else is pitch black. This is pretty much useless because it's not mimicking how light acts in real life. Let's go ahead and fix some things here. With the spotlight still selected, let's go ahead and under Modified, click on Shader to open up the Light Shader PPG, and let's make a few changes. And I'll just have a render region open here so we can see those changes update. I'll change the intensity all the way up to 1 just to make it a little bit brighter. And I'm going to enable shadows, so I'll check on shadows. And the umbra, I want it to be all the way at 0 because I want pitch black shadows. I don't want them being affected by any umbra or anything like that. And we pretty much have the same thing. Now, in real life, if we did have a hole like this in the ceiling of a house or an apartment or whatever, light would come in through from the sun or the moon or whatever's shining light through there. It would hit this floor and this wall, and then that light would bounce around in our room and give a nice subtle indirect illumination effect on the walls and the ceiling and the floor of the rest of the inside of this room. Now, why isn't that happening here? That's because it's an advanced feature of Mental Ray, and you have to activate it manually because it's an advanced feature, and it's going to take longer to render, and it takes more setup, and you have to be more experienced with it, which is obviously why it's not activated by default. So we're going to go ahead and manually activate it. Alright, now with this light setup, what I'm going to do is just let you know how to activate it. Now, it's not as simple as hitting just one switch that says turn on, and that's it. It's as simple as hitting a few switches, actually. The first switch that you need to hit to turn on global illumination is located on the lights of your scene itself. Okay, each light in Mental Ray, or in XSI I should say, can be told to emit photons when it renders with Mental Ray. So in real life, if you have a flashlight in your hand and you're lighting up a dark area or a dark room, say the power goes out or something, that flashlight, whether it's a flashlight or the sun or whatever it is, if it's a light emitter, it's going to emit photons. That's how lights work in real life. Photons come off a light, they bounce around in areas, bounce off of walls and the floor and everything, even off of the atmosphere, and then they go into your eyes or into a video camera, and that's how we see pictures and film and the things that we see with our eyes. Well, Mental Ray has a feature called global illumination that works with photons that allows us to mimic that light behavior inside of our 3D space in here. So let's go over here in the light settings, and under the light parameters we're going to go over here to the photon tab, and we'll have two settings here we can activate. We can activate caustics or global illumination. Caustics works with photons just like global illumination, but it's a different effect. I'm not going to get into it now. I'll dedicate a whole video just to that toward the end of this tutorial, and you'll get to see how that works. Right now we're working with global illumination, GI for short. We're going to check that on. You'll notice nothing happens when the render region updates. That's because we have to activate a couple of more switches to get this to work. So I'm going to pin this PPG down because I'm going to be using it a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and collapse that by double clicking the name bar up there. And what I want to do is go to my other switches. Those switches are located in the renderer options. So there's a few ways we can get to renderer options. So let's just do it this way. It's pretty quick. We'll go over here to regions, go down to all options, and this will open up another PPG. This top parameter set up here is useless right now. I'm not going to be using it at the moment. So what I'm going to do is where it says render region options and your mouse cursor changes to a little hand icon, Click on that to collapse that, and it just makes it easier. I figure that's a lot easier and more understanding for a beginner instead of seeing all those tons of extra options that we're not even going to be using. Okay, so we have a tab here called GI and Caustics. If we click on that, we get two options. We can enable caustics and global illumination just like we could on the spotlight. Now again, we're not messing around with caustics right now, so we're going to go ahead and turn on global illumination, so check that on. And a whole host of options opens up down here. And you'll notice an effect updates over here in our viewport. Now, very important, once we turn on the feature, we want to activate the rebuild option down here on the rebuild map. Just go ahead and check that on. What that does is it tells Mental Ray to go ahead and update the photon map every time we make changes. Now, I'm not going to tell you the photon map is now. That'll become evident and more obvious to you as we play around with global illumination and you get some more experience with it and more exposure to it. Okay, so here's my default settings. There's quite a different number of settings and parameters here, which can be pretty daunting for a beginning at first. But don't worry about it, because I'm gonna go ahead and walk you through this, and by the end of this, you'll be pretty good. You'll be up and running in global illumination. All right. So what we have here is light that seems to be coming from somewhere, and this light's actually coming from the light itself. Remember, we activated the global illumination check mark here for the spotlight. That told Mental Ray that this light is going to shoot photons, and those photons are then going to bounce around inside of our scene. So those photons came from the light, like a real light in the real world would, hit the floor, hit the walls and everything, and started bouncing around in the scene and lit up our room. So that's how you activate global illumination. But as you can notice, it's a very splotchy effect. It looks pretty nasty, pretty disgusting, pretty bad. And you're probably thinking, well, why would I want to light up my scene like this? This looks horrible. Well, don't worry about it. This is just activating global illumination. I'm going to end this video here, and in the next video, we're going to spend the whole time going ahead and tweaking this global illumination effect and controlling it so it can look as bright as we want it to. We can change the color and, of course, the quality, so this actually looks like a more realistic room rather than some room that got spray painted by vandals or something in here. So we'll do that in the next video.